Tēnā koutou katoa and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this Vibe event. Particular welcome to Dr. Juliet Ansell from Bragato Research Institute, who will be presenting here today. But also welcome to many people from associated sectors to this event. My name is Grant Edwards. I'm the Vice-Chancellor here at Te Wharewanaka Aotearoa Lincoln University, and I welcome you to this event. The purpose of the Vibe series is to bring together researchers, industry leaders, policymakers, and the wider community to explore the opportunities and challenges shaping land-based industries in New Zealand. These sessions provide an opportunity to share knowledge, hear different perspectives, and strengthen connections between research and industry. Today, we turn our attention to one of New Zealand's most significant land-based industries, wine, and the challenges and opportunities shaping its future. Wine production is an important part of New Zealand landscapes, economy, and identity. At the same time, climate change, evolving consumer expectations, and land use pressures are creating new challenges for vineyards and the wider wine industry. From soil and water management to disease control, variety selection, and new technologies, the decisions being made today will influence the resilience, productivity, and sustainability of the industry into the future. As is customary at the Vibe events, I will to briefly introduce the work at Lincoln University in the space. I'm pleased to welcome Associate Professor Amber Parker. Amber's research looks at grapevine responses to temperature and water stress, climate adaptation, cultivar and rootstock diversity, and the use of precision agriculture and viticulture. Amber will give a brief 5-minute overview of some of the work underway here at Lincoln University before introducing Juliet Ansell to give the keynote presentation. Thank you, Amber.
Today I have the pleasure of giving you a bit of a flash talk, a 5-minute flyby overview of what we do here at Lincoln. And if you can come away with one interesting fact you didn't know, then I think that's a job well done. So viticulture and oenology at Lincoln University. First and foremost, of course, we're educators. We're the only New Zealand university that has a degree combining viticulture and oenology. And if you go out into the industry, you will meet viticulture graduates throughout all the companies, all the wine regions, nationally and internationally. Fun fact, 1973 was the first year that grapes were planted on this campus, and we still have Muller Thurgau vines planted from 1975. So for those of you who are familiar with the wine first of the 70s and 80s. Our first degree was 1994, and now in our portfolio we have 3 qualifications, BVNO, graduate diploma, and the online Master of Wine and Viticulture. So if you're interested, come chat to me. Right, we have a range of research topics, and look, this is just a snapshot here, but really they're all focusing on sustainability, a key drive in our university and a key drive for the industry for the future. We've got things around climate change adaptation, grape and wine quality. We cover things like canopy management, low alcohol wines, phenolics, tannins, wine sensory under that big umbrella there. We've got recent work led by Associate Professor Vin Town, circular economy, dealing with winery waste, right through to things like considering rural resilience. Our industry was hit by earthquakes. What did that mean? How did we bounce back? Through to climate change and extreme weather events, which most of us are aware of our industry in recent years. Here's some recent highlights. We've got news releases, so please take the time to check this out on the Lincoln pages. Destroying diseases and preserving grapes, all with liquid nitrogen. Cryopreservation for grapevines, led by Dr. Jean Vitobi. What will climate change mean for your favourite Pinot Noir? Work carried out by Dr. Ronnie McCausey, also on staff in our Centre for Viticulture and Oenology. Collaboration is critical for us. And I just want to highlight 2 examples. This is an NDIE Endeavour program looking at predicting the unseen, a new method for accurate yield estimation in viticulture and horticulture. This is led out of the UC Vision team. They have a great video on their website of how this robot they've developed works. takes lots and lots of images, 3D reconstructs vines, and our job is to kind of ground truth and make sense of that from a viticulture and a grape growing perspective. And as you can see, it's a multi-organisational collaboration between UC, Bioeconomy Science Institute, and Lincoln. Another example closer to home, working with the partners that are here today, is Bragato Research Institute, the project that is, from a Lincoln perspective, led by Dr. Leandro Aotearoa, and he's looking at elemental sulfur persistence on grape and mitigation strategies. And that's also in collaboration with the University of Auckland. We do a lot of outreach and engagement. 2 examples from this year. This is the Young Viticultural Finals in North Canterbury, Waipara. Myself and our young manager with an alumni, a graduate, and Mackenzie and Josh. And Josh actually won this, and he's heading next week to the finals for wine and fit, and is the only, I think it's the only person, well, at least the only student that has got to the finals for both the young viticulture and wine. So we're incredibly proud of that in terms of our upcoming students and, you know, holding their ground in these really important competitions for our industry. And there's Leandro presenting at the Bragato Research Institute Great Days in Central Otago on his sulphur topic. The final point I want to raise is that we do have an important role in service. The Bragato Research Institute's National Vine Collection is hosted on campus, and it is our job to maintain that management for Bragato Research Institute. So without further ado, we move on to the topic, the future of wine innovation in Aotearoa's vineyards. It is my pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker, Dr. Juliet Ansell, CEO of the Bragato Research Institute. I'm just going to segue a wee comment here. Juliet, in her early teens, colonised a month-long covered with a thatched fruit flies, 50 textures and a hankering to understand genetics. Juliet brings an extensive scientific and innovation background to her role at Bragato. She trained at King's College London and completed her PhD at Oxford University before working as a scientist in the UK, Tanzania, the Gambia, and Australia, and later joining plant and food research in New Zealand. She has led major research programs involving government and industry, and previously held innovation leadership roles with Zespri, focused on health, nutrition, and resilience. Today, Juliet leads the Bragato Research Institute, New Zealand's leading research and advisory organisation for the wine and grape industry. Juliet will share insights from Bragato's work supporting growers and winemakers, exploring how research, technology, and innovation can help build resilient and productive vineyards. She'll also discuss emerging trends, the impact of climate change, and what a sustainable, high-quality future could look like for New Zealand's wine industry. Please join me in giving Dr. Juliet Ansell a warm welcome, warm Lincoln University welcome.
Thank you very much for that lovely welcome. And yeah, that's one of my favourite quotes as well. I grew up in a family of artists. No one in my family had ever been to university, and if they had, they wouldn't be studying science. So yeah, I probably raised a few eyebrows at home. Thank you very much for the invitation to speak here today. It's my pleasure, and really talk to you about the Bragato Institute. Perhaps come back another time and talk to you about fruit flies and Africa and all of that. But for today, it's all about Bragato. And I've got lots of my team in the audience as well. So if I get tricky questions, then I will be pointing to them. So this is Bragato Research Institute in London. I couldn't start this talk without first talking to you about the wine industry. I think probably the most common question I get asked these days is, so how is the industry? What's happening? You know, is there a future? Because I think if you actually listen to the media, you would just think it's a disaster, it's doom and gloom, there's no future. But I wanted to assure you that it is a big industry, and it is an industry with ambition, and that ambition needs research to support it. So a few facts and figures for you. At the moment, we're 2 billion in total export revenue. We have an ambition to grow that to 5 billion in the next 5 to 8 years, depending on where you start the clock. there's 44,000 hectares planted, and it is pretty spread throughout the whole geography of New Zealand, but it's obviously concentrated in Marlborough. 25 vintage was the biggest vintage almost ever, 520 tonnes, 1,000 tonnes. That was a bit of an anomaly. This year, I think it's more like 430,000 tonnes. There are the direct jobs, and then there are the supply sector jobs, but it's a big employer. And it's actually New Zealand's largest horticultural crop. I think more to that point, though, it's not just a big crop, it's a value crop. So it's a great stat that Braden trawled up for me. So we're the 6th largest by value in terms of exporters of wine internationally. So yeah, punching above our weight, I'd say. Here's another little graph for you. So these are some things that are growing. So the wine export value has been growing, the volume has been growing, and our market share has been growing. That's a little bit out of date. We're now around about 1% of the global share, and yeah, that is growing. Now, I know what you're all thinking. Wine consumption is going down globally, and it is absolutely, but it's not going down all the New Zealand wine. The people that are drinking are choosing the lighter white styles of wine that New Zealand is famous for and does really well. So I hope that's convinced you that there's a future. There's a reason why we're still doing this research. There's a reason why the government and industry are investing in this research. So we need to keep going. Oh, I've got one more, forgot. So I just want to take you to this a little bit. So on the left-hand side here, you've got the overall market volume and value. So like that previous graph that just shows wine consumption is going down, value and volume are going down in most of our major markets. So our big markets are US, Canada, UK, Australia, with emerging markets being China and South Korea. But look, New Zealand's bucking the trend. So where they're seeing a decrease in volume and value, we're seeing an increase. So this is just more to say we're picking up that slack. We're growing in volume and value. So who's Bragato? So it was launched in 2017. Some of you will remember the Regional Research Institute. So we were a recipient of one of those, and we're still going. I think we might be the only one that's still going. So for me, the secret of that is the levy investment that we get from our members. It's an organisation that's funded by New Zealand Levy. It's for industry. It's for the wine industry, and we lead science and research on vineyards and the wineries, and also in sustainability research. Nice fact, I think, is that we're named after Romeo Bragato, and he was one of the leading pioneers of viticulture many, many years ago. He came to New Zealand and he sort of plotted out where should you be growing wine, and we're named after him. So what's our point of difference from places like Lincoln and perhaps bioeconomy sciences? We are the connection between industry and scientists. So we are doing our own research. We're also funding other people to do research, and we're also extending knowledge that's found by other people and funded by other people to our research, to our industry members. So we not only do the research, we also communicate it. We have quite a large knowledge transfer and extension program, and that's a really important part of having an impact, because I've worked in academic science, and I've written my fair share of papers, and I don't think too many people read them. Well, not mine anyway. But I think to have an impact for an industry-facing organisation, you actually need to be telling growers about that. You need to be helping them how to adopt meaningfully from your research. So it's a big pillar of our work, is extending that knowledge and aiding adoption. So locations in Marlborough and also here in Lincoln. So we're co-located with the Bioeconomy Sciences Institute over the road. That's where our grape and breeding team are based. We have a molecular lab. We also have a research vineyard, which is hosted here, and the national wine as well. This is our strategy on the page. It's actually, recognise that that's our winery. I'm going to show you one photo quickly at the beginning, but this is everything that we do on a page. I'm not going to go into detail, but I'm going to talk a little bit more about a couple of areas where we're working. I think for me, the most important part of this whole strategy is this line here. So I've been at Bragato for 2 years, and one of the first things we did was to actually engage with industry and say, what are the problems that you need us to solve? What are your priorities for research? And we managed to narrow them down to these 7 here: resilient genetics, vineyard productivity, adoption of technology, optimizing inputs, water and soil, growing wine circularity, and innovative wine products. So really everything that we do and everything that we fund has to fit within one of those strategic priority outcomes for industry. We have a few large programs that are funded by the government, and I will talk through a couple of those, both in the areas of resilient genetics and in vineyard productivity. But yeah, we've probably got a few gaps maybe in this space in terms of large activities and programs of work. We was talking about just now, this knowledge transfer area is that really important pillar of what we do with the research. So this is the team based here. So some of you will know Darryl. Darryl was an alumni of Lincoln University. He did his PhD here. And the rest of the team, we've got, I think, all of those except Matthew have a PhD. So a very highly qualified team of scientists. This is sort of the more fundamental research team at Bragato, all working on breeding grapevines. And we're the only team in New Zealand breeding grapevines for wine grapes. And in Blenheim, we have wine growing and sustainability, although actually Seth is based down here as well. He's on this team because that's where he sits functionally. And we have a viticulture team that's led by Ross Wise. So Ross Wise is actually a master of wine. Now, 2 years ago, I didn't know what that was, but that's actually a pretty big deal. It means he's done an awful lot of research. He's tasted a lot of wine, but he knows a lot about how wine should taste. And that's fantastic for us to have someone like that in the Institute, because it's not just about growing grapes, it's about growing grapes that translate into great wine. So yeah, I won't go through in detail with all of these people, but a very diverse background, which I love, and I think we've got 10 different nationalities, maybe more, in our team of 24. So great diversity. So I'm going to tell you a little bit more about the grapevine improvement team. So when Bragato was set up, we had some initial funding from the government to basically build the winery and set up this lab here with molecular equipment. And we didn't really we had a little bit of seed funding for projects, for research, but the biggest research program that was funded was called Sauvignon Blanc 2.0. Some of you will know that we're an extreme monoculture, so that almost 85% of production is Sauvignon Blanc from Marlborough. That's a single clone, not just a single variety, but a single clone of a single variety. It's pretty risky. It's a fantastic clone. It's a fantastic variety, and it is what we're well known for. But is it resilient against the future? And yeah, I think this is where the funding for Sauvignon Blanc became a bit of a no-brainer, because we need to actually protect ourselves against the future. About the future climate, pest and disease risks, drought, all of those types of things. So I'm going to tell you a little bit more by a video about the Sauvignon Blanc program. That's a collaboration. So, like I said, we do some research in-house, but I don't think we do anything, very few projects we do solely on our own. We do a lot in collaboration with key partners. So the Bioeconomy of Sciences Institute, Lincoln University, Auckland University. I won't name them all, but certainly it's a collaborative effort. We really have focused all of the breeding initiatives on clonal propagation of new clones. So that's really what the Sauvignon Blanc program does. But that's quite a limited breeding program. So there are now another couple of work streams that we're adding to that. So that's with the DRVs. The DRV means disease-resistant varieties. These are being developed commercially overseas already. Some of them have been grown commercially overseas. And we want to help the industry get those here for New Zealand. So we're working with some of the nurseries and also testings for those new varieties that they're bringing in. So they're bringing in plantlets that are ready just for planting. We're going to be doing some of the testing. We will do the winemaking in the winery to look at the quality. One of the things about our research winery is it's a small volume, so you don't need to have a hectare of grapes to see if the wine's going to turn out okay. And we're also going to be doing some seed breeding, so that's in collaboration with Plant and Food, that we're now working more closely with them in terms of our crossing, so traditional breeding, if you like. At the moment, we are not doing any genetically modified organisms for breeding. From a research sense, though, we certainly employ genetic technologies, and that's our position for the future. So it could be that at some point in the future, there's a world that is more accepting of gene-edited vines, and we are keeping up with our skill set. We've got highly skilled team members that are learning these methods, and we're sort of ready to implement them if we need to, perhaps when the consumers are ready. It's non-transgenic. The genealogy is not just about breeding, though. So we've got a lot of capability in. If you think about breeding lots of different new clones, we need to evaluate them somehow. So we need to know what their phenotypes are like. We need to be able to rapidly phenotype some of these clones so we can exclude them or push them faster down the track. So that means there's a lot of physiology capability. There's screening for pathogens. Pathogens like the number one problem that we have, particularly powdery mildew. So we want to be rapidly screening some of these seedlings to see if they're going to be good for us. Another exciting area is RNA-based gene silencing. So I've talked a bit about fungal spores, but we also have virus that's quite a big problem for the grape industry. There's a new technology, well, relatively new. It's new in terms of being used commercially in the use of RNA, which you can spray onto plants, and it can actually interrupt the virus replication. And it seems to, in potted vine trials, it seems to reduce that viral load. And we're now moving through to be able to look at that in a field trial. And biosecurity. So biosecurity at NZ Wine has always been a bit of an education activity. Hasn't been to date much investment in research, so it's a bit more responsive than proactive. And coming from the kiwi fruit industry, I know that that's underdone, and we're just starting to do a little bit of work on biosecurity. And we have Banu somewhere in Pavilions who's leading that from the Lincoln team. First step is to just say, what are our top 10 risks? What's the likelihood and what's the impact? So doing a bit of a risk matrix, and from there we can establish, okay, what research might we need to do? I'm going to put your video now. So this is all to do with Sauvignon Blanc 2.0, and it's the breeding vineyard that we've been setting up. This is 4 years, coming into year 4, is that right? Year 5, when there's nearly 10,000 clones in there, but I'll let the video speak for itself. So you might just press play, do I?
We're here at Bragato Research Institute's new selection vineyard that houses our 6,000 new Sauvignon Blanc clones that were planted here in December of last year. The aim of this project is to develop new clones of Sauvignon Blanc that are better suited to our changing climate and to problems that the industry might face going forward.
So this trial is a way to genetically diversify the Sauv Blanc we have in the country. It's basically a randomisation of the genes that we have, and that looks like 6,000 unique vines in the vineyard here, and yeah, we're trying to find the needle in the haystack.
All of these clones are unique genetic individuals, and we only have a single copy of them, so we're really trying to make sure that they all survive through to maturity. Part of what we are doing in the grapevine improvement team is screening them to determine which ones are of the most potential benefit to the New Zealand wine industry.
Because it's small, we can afford to really focus on each plant.
Coming into the next growing season, we'll be measuring certain traits. We've already started doing some screens. We've collected leaves from all of the plants and have had the DNA extracted, and we can use sequencing techniques to start to determine which ones might be interesting candidates to look at in greater detail. The key traits that we're interested in are resistance to powdery mildew, water use efficiency, and frost tolerance. We're facing a changing climate, which will affect how we're able to grow our grapes. There'll be increased disease pressure, changes in the availability of water going forward. So this vineyard is really important to help us build resilience in the New Zealand wine industry.
Well, it didn't work in rehearsals, but it works perfectly now. Just before we do go on to that though, before I leave Sauvignon Blanc 2.0, so all of the traits that we are looking for, so we've got these randomly generated clones, and we're actually nearly the 10,000 mark now being planted out, so that was filmed a while ago. They are all unique individuals, and we have got a set of traits which have been prioritised and then reprioritised by our industry partners. And these large programs we run with a commercial advisory group. So they're big wine companies usually, because they're the ones that can afford to put a little bit more investment into programs like this. They meet with the program leader, with Daryl and the researchers periodically, and we're constantly checking as to what they think about what we're doing, getting feedback on that, and the traits are for a greater resilience. So, yeah, number one is disease resistance, then it's around environmental things such as drought or frost protection, and I won't remember the others. Taste is absolutely in there. It has to have the typicity of Marlborough Sauvignon Blanc, because that's what the market wants. But yeah, I suppose I wanted to emphasise that connection between what we're doing here in the field, and this is our most fundamental project, is still always connected with a line of sight to the industry and what they want and what we're breeding for them. Otherwise, they're not going to plant what we produce. So I'll switch gears a little bit to viticulture innovation. And I probably should mention that the big programs that we have are co-funded by NPI. So NPI is perhaps less known to universities researchers, but it's a big part of how we're funded. It's probably 30% of Bragato's funding, and it's in they're now called PSGF, so they used to be called Sustainable Food Futures Fibre or Fibre Futures, and now it's Primary Sector Growth Fund. It's only you can only get that funding with at least 60% industry funding. So it's needed by industry, otherwise they would put that funding in. Viticulture innovation. So this is really all about these three. These are three of our primary outcomes that industry identified for us. In the improved vine productivity, great quality, we have a project called Next Generation Viticulture. Some of you will have seen in other sectors, like, for example, apples and kiwi fruit, they have moved from a more organic tree shape to a vertical system. So growing vertically and changing the architecture of the plant, the vine. That's basically the premise around next generation viticulture, but I will tell you a bit more about that. Grapevines grow in a full cane formation, and what we're doing is actually changing that so that they're growing vertically. The grapes normally grow within that sort of size, and we're actually going a bit lower and going much higher. So it's increasing the yield from the same inputs, but not without compromising on quality. The other project that we have in that space is long-term pruning. Again, it's a different architecture of the grapevine, but it's to try and minimise inputs and then reduce the cost of actually producing the grapes on that architecture. In terms of our efficiency, there's been a huge amount of work. I mean, it has to go back 10, 15 years on grapevine trunk disease. And there's actually a technical resource out now that's brought that all together. And this is probably what we're seeing more and more of in the industry, because there was a huge boom in the 80s. Lots and lots of vineyard planting went in, and those are all now starting to age out. And one of the main reasons that happens is because they have trunk disease, so the vines are just gradually becoming less productive. So we want to understand that trunk disease, if we can prevent it, and there's a good resource on that. We've also looked at root stock, so water use efficiency and drought tolerance, a bit more in that space. In terms of optimising inputs, so we've got a few projects there. So, like I said, the powdery mildew is one of the major problems. And if you think about global warming and climate change, that warmer weather, all of the fluctuations in different weather patterns and more rain lends itself to fungal pathogens. And we need to be looking at multiple different approaches to try and solve this problem. And I'll talk a bit more about that at the end. But yeah, just being able to detect whether the spores are there as a project that we're investing in. And then what happens from all that spraying? Well, you have to think about what happens in the wine. So that's the work with Lincoln that we're looking at, the elemental salt persistence in grapes coming through into the wine. So I think I've got a video on next generation viticulture now. So this will just tell you a little bit more about that program. It's another one that's co-funded by MPI and the wineries. This one I particularly like because we've got 7 sites. They're all commercial vineyards, and they're hosting the trial site on those commercial vineyards. And I'll tell you a bit more at the end.
Next generation viticulture aims to improve vineyard productivity and profitability by reducing vineyard management costs, improving yield performance and consistency, and offering sustainability benefits along the way as well, all while safeguarding the quality that we're known for here in New Zealand. Traditional spur pruning has horizontal cordons down the row. We're trialling vertical cordons that grow up into the canopy. The aim's to have a more open canopy that can intercept more light early in the season.
So what we've done for apple is designed a canopy system which allows us to use, instead of 50-55% maximum sunlight through the season, we're now utilising something like 80%. It stops the clustering of the leaf area, creating deep shade, putting fruit into shade, all the things that we know are bad for fruit quality and for productivity.
We have 3 different training systems that we are testing and evaluating. The first is 6V, so you have 6 upright cordons, 9V, and the final one is 12V, where we have 6 upright cordon on either side of the canopy.
So we're hoping to see cost reductions with these new efficient systems, with less need for tractor passes, for leaf plucking, for trimming. We're also hoping to improve yield consistency and performance by having a higher base of yield to work with that allows growers to fine-tune that in a cost-effective way to meet their own needs for the season. Sustainability benefits can come through reduced water use per tonne of grapes harvested, and hopefully through reduced fungicide use as well with the more open canopies and spread out fruit zones.
Quality for Cloudy Bay is everything. It's what we've built our winery reputation on. Ensuring that we could not only protect the quality but actually improve quality was something that we're deeply focused on. This research is really important for our industry. Costs are increasing and our international markets are increasing, and how can we ensure that we maintain competitive wine prices and wine styles in the international market for the prosperity of our industry as a whole.
It's a 7-year partnership between MPI, New Zealand wine growers, and 7 participating wineries throughout Marlborough. Having BRI run this program means we can bring scientific rigour and consistency across all 7 sites that NGV is being trialled.
So the really neat thing about this is where we've had trial sites, we've actually had some of those commercial wineries see what's happening, like it, and then they've planted more of what we're doing. So they've, I think there was, look at the number right. I think there's 10 hectares on one of the sites where they've just gone ahead and they've gone like, this is working, we think it's right, we're just going to invest in it. And then it's early adoption. It's actually early adoption while the research is happening, which is great. And people come along. We've just had our winter workshop for this where we invite anyone to come along, whether they're part of the trial or not. They come along and they're like, I tried this aspect, or but what happened? How did your machinery work? And there's other growers, other wineries giving each other advice on how they're making it work for them. So real true co-innovation, learning as we go and adoption as we go. I think it's a great model for our research. And of course, those grapes have been grown differently, so we need to check that the wine tastes good, and a big part of that program is actually winemaking. So we've had a couple of seasons now of winemaking, and the quality is up there. The quality's matching what we've already got. It's some of them, there's a slight delay in ripening, so some of them are slightly lower sugars, which translates to slightly lower alcohol, and that's actually also been seen as a bit of an advantage. If you use this growing system, you can produce a naturally lower alcohol wine. So other things that go on in our winery is it's an amazing facility. You're all invited if you're in Blenheim, come and we'll give you a tour around. We have about 200 micro tanks that hold 17 litres, 4 lots of 17 litres in each one. So we can do replicates in exactly the same tank. It's ideal for white wine because most of what we do is on Sauvignon Blanc, but we certainly can do red wines as well. We're also looking at research in terms of low and no alcohol, so through products that we might add, yeasts, different yeasts. We're looking at what the industry might need for unpackaged wine and keeping the quality while it's being shipped in larger containers or volumes. Some of the work up here is in partnership, so that the reductive aromas in Pinot Noir, diagnostics, or it's just a bit of a list of things that we're looking at. There's quite a lot of small projects in there. We don't have a big research program in wine irrigation space, but it's pretty busy at the moment with the other large projects making wine for, I guess, viticultural trials. And Sauvignon Blanc will start to come online now, where we've got grapes that have grown to the stage where we can actually make a single 17-litre wine from those vines. So sustainable wine growing, that was one of the other output pillars, grape and wine circularity. And we have been doing a few small projects here. So the carbon calculator is a project that allows growers to put all of their inputs into what they have in terms of equipment, how many passes they do, and they can actually make some choices on that based on what they would like to, where they'd like to reduce carbon. Okay, if I did one less tractor pass here, or if I change the machinery to electric. So it's a tool for them to use, really. We've built the database, and we're now moving into a stage where we can start to use it as a calculator. We're collaborating with the BSI on insect grass and using insect grass along with some of the winery and viticulture waste products to make something that's a higher value. In fact, is a little project which is looking at the sort of footprint of making a bottle of wine on planetary boundaries. There's a company that's doing this for many different products. For example, we found out that a glass of wine or a bottle of wine is actually about the same as an orange. You can make your choice then during the day. Can I eat an orange or can I have a glass of wine? So the overall impact, I think, it's for consumers more, and it's not, I wouldn't say it's completely taken off yet, but I think there's a bit of traction growing in the market for understanding to make choices on what you're buying and what you're consuming. We have another one of those large MPI programs in with a primary sector growth fund on circularity. So at the moment, we put an enormous amount of waste, or the industry does, into landfill. That can't continue. That's going to finish because the council is going to say no more organic waste. And we want to find a solution for that. We have found a solution for that, we think. We have a pilot test, and very shortly we hope to be able to announce whether that's been successful, because that will be the first large circular program, so taking waste, putting it back onto the vineyards and keeping it really truly circular in the region. We've had another little project here on ways to store grape marks for longer. So we have a contestable fund every year, which is probably 6 small projects, and we get loads of really interesting ideas that come through. This is one of them that was funded in the sustainable wine growing space. I've got 2 slides now, which is a bit of an idea of how do we approach a problem. So I probably don't need to convince you we have a problem, but I will anyway. In terms of powdery mildew, there are around 14.5 sprays per vineyard. That's about 3.7 million litres of diesel, 2,500 kilometres driven. That's to the moon and back twice. 210,000 labour hours, 21 tractors are retired every year from this, and 19,900 tonnes of chemical. So this can't go on. This is a huge amount of spraying. What are we doing about it? Well, we're not just doing one approach. We are looking at, so on the bottom we've got some applied, we've got some blue sky, we've got short-term, long-term. And each of these is an activity that we're doing. It's a project either by ourselves or with collaborators. And for example, we've got this SB2, so the clone breeding program. Obviously, we're breeding for disease resistance as number one. If we manage to produce a clone that's commercial, that will drop from 14.5 sprays a year down to three for maintenance, just to make sure we don't get any escaping resistance going on. But we're also investing in a small startup called Sensitive Bio. They've got a novel idea of they use insect receptors to detect very small amounts of volatiles, and we're designing that to a particular volatile. So we're designing that with them to the powdery mildew. So they think they will be able to do an early detection system in the vineyards that we will then say, okay, it's ready to spray or don't spray. Most growers at the moment spray by calendar. So I sprayed this time last year, I sprayed this time this year. And I mean, that's not necessarily wrong, but we believe we can reduce the number of sprays, but only with confidence that there's no spores there that are going to damage the crop. I won't go through all of these, but you get the idea. There's a whole load of things we can do short-term and applied that are building the picture. There's some that are like a long shot, yeah, but there might be a small cost. So we're going to try those out anyway. And then we've got the big kind of long-term expensive things up here that they might not work, but if they work, they could completely revolutionise things for us. We work with partners, like I've been saying all along, so it's not all work we do ourselves, and it's not all work we fund ourselves. But I think what we would like to be and what we're hoping for is to be that connection between industry and say, this is what industry wants, we know what their problems are, let's work together and solve some of these problems. But yeah, you've got that capability, we don't need to duplicate that, let's work together and do it. So obviously the BSI, university, viticulture, certified, now USDA and Aotearoa, they're all involved in this one area that we're working on. I can't finish without talking about knowledge transfer because, like I've said, this is a really important part of what we do. Amber was mentioning Grape Days before. Grape Days is our one event of the year that's probably key for our members, and we do it in our Marlborough, Central and Hawke's Bay. We have about 500 growers come to that, or members that come to those days. It's about applied research that we're getting to them. We do sometimes tell them about some exciting new research as well, but I guess the focus is what can you take home from this and start doing differently in your vineyard. We have a grower trials program, which is a new initiative. So rather than going through quite a lengthy research application, these are short, small trials that we just work with the grower, run on their vineyard, and it's a small, quick piece of research that we do, and then extend it. And we have resources that come out. So there's a model here that was worked up for the growers that are pulling their vineyards out or deciding to mothball their vineyards. You know, is when you're overwhelmed with a difficult situation. I think it's hard to make decisions. One of our roles is to bring all the research together, put it into something that's easily understandable, provide a tool that can help people make a call on if they mothball for a year or pull out or keep going. So some of those really user-friendly tools is part of what we do. And then more technical resources, I suppose. My last slide. I mean, these are our funding sources. New Zealand Wine, that's our levy payers, that's our member owners. We're wholly owned by the New Zealand Wine organisation, but we get significant funding from NPI, a little bit from NBI in the past, but we have at the moment. We do, yes. And then wine companies who fund us as well. So I hope that's given you a good overview of what we do, some of the activities that we're doing to protect the industry from the things that are coming at them. And I think that I've also hopefully convinced you that one of the things that's not a problem is people wanting to drink our wine. Thank you very much, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you much for that presentation. There's an opportunity for questions now. And if you would just state your name.
Bert from the BH Organics Trust. Thank you very much. Very interested to see where everything's at. One thing that struck me on Paraguay mildew control is there was no biopesticides in that list of potential control measures? Any particular reason for that?
We can't do everything. I mean, it's not it's not a strategic position. Yeah, absolutely. So, and I think, I mean, I've certainly seen there's more of that happening overseas. Yeah, and I know that you've submitted ideas as well. So, yeah, it's not a position. Lack of endless funding.
The Vineyards area, you guys think that after the if not for living with the disease, at least to try to deal with the resistance, have you tried any collective action?
So what do you mean? Just, sorry, can you expand a bit?
So collective action in terms of trying to preserve the efficacy.
Braden, can you take that question?
Yeah, so the motivation is right, what growers need, right, it's kind of model and practice model. We don't do a lot outside of consistency, but we get done some this year, which is reasonably positive results. But it's an organisation with one to
We're not at last resort yet, are we? And so I think there's still quite a lot of scope in terms of the efficacy, but we don't want to get to that point. So we want to look for alternatives, which might be a new disease-resistant variety, or it could be another product.
Juliet, you've deep connection to industry. What is the role of industry advisory groups with Bragato?
I didn't actually mention that. We've had a bit of a review of our change to our governance structure recently. So obviously I have a board that I report to. I also have an industry advisory group. So that industry advisory group is they advise and they review and they make recommendations, and they're basically saying, looking at our scientific research and saying it's appropriate or it's going to meet a need for industry. And that group meets 4 times a year, so we would use them to look at our strategy, maybe take a deep dive into one of our areas. They also will be used to consider the contestable funds applications that come in, because we want to, we can fund lots of interesting ideas, but we want to make sure that it's relevant. So I'm actually setting that up right now, because we've had a bit of a change in terms of that governance. But it's industry members with a scientific interest, but we also have a component of that which is new, which will be scientific researchers on that. They will be coming into that group periodically, not sort of members of it. But yeah, that will be happening in the next probably 6 weeks. We'll try and get that set up.
Thank you. More questions?
Yeah, I was curious about a rough stop, a couple of slides. The one about the inject press and the mark. There's a picture there that I couldn't understand how it related.
No, it didn't.
What are VOCs?
Okay, so VOCs are volatile organic compounds. So these are just very small compounds that are not easily detectable by normal means. But this company, Sentient Bio, use the insect olfactory sensors, and they can pick up very small amounts of these volatile compounds. The picture was actually of winery lees. So one of the big waste products coming from our wine is this lees product. And it goes to landfill at the moment, so it's a big problem. So yeah, the picture didn't match. Well spotted. That's a big problem that we're trying to solve.
Neil, I was just interested in the grape improvement program. It seems to be very southern long sort of focused, and all the grape actually being and so I presume on their own rooftops there. So is there a danger in sort of concentrating very much on the lower location for that climate change and seasonalness and the likes? It could be in some of those tokens. It could be ideal for growing some central Otago, 5 years, 10 years time, or whatever. So do you need to diversify and looking at the combination, like the clone and the rootstock that
Yes to all of those things, absolutely. And I mean, all I can say is that the initial funding was for Sauvignon Blanc, and in Marlborough. Actually, that research vineyard with all the clones is here, and they're on their own routes at the moment, but they're not very old. So the plan is that we will move them to Marlborough at least. A lot of the information that we're finding out, though, about the gene function for some of these traits is applicable to other varieties. And I think that's the purpose of having these other work streams to our breeding program. So it's not just a clonal propagation program, it's actually a breeding program with several work streams, which could be seedlings. Plant Food have a Pinot Noir collection, and our collaboration with them now definitely brings that in as another string to breeding. But I suppose I would say genetic information is applicable to any variety. We kind of have to do what we're funded for to a certain extent, and what's going to bring the most value back. Like, they're really valid questions, and I would love to be doing all of that. So,
the circular winery vineyard thing. You were talking about a solution and didn't actually say what it was. Was that an error by question?
No, and sorry, I can't say too much, but it's. I just wanted you to know that we're doing something in that space, and very soon it will be public and we can talk about it. So yeah, you know Seth, though, don't you?
Look forward to hearing that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Please.
Yes.
So what's the industry
I mean, I know what's behind your question, I think. So obviously we have had a bit of an oversupply in the industry, and we launched this probably at the worst possible time. So we got the funding for this at the worst possible time. It is about increasing yield, but it's actually not just for increasing yield. It's about getting more from less inputs. We were concerned, to be frank with you, we were concerned about how the industry was going to take it at that point that it came in. And we did have a lot of pushback on that. But I think we talked about what's behind it, what's the rationale. It is about high quality yield, and it's about growing it with less input, so less cost and less spraying. And now, like I said, there are people that are just doing their own greenfield planting with this. It's being picked up. There's lots of vineyards coming out, but I think some people are concerned has too much come out, because whilst we've got an oversupply now, we've got a growth trajectory, and it could be that we don't have enough in 1 or 2 years. So
we're going to have a supply now with yield gain, so there's a lot of potential stuff in.
Yeah, that's right. That's true. Yeah, I mean, it depends where you're sitting as well, doesn't it? I mean, yeah, we're not. There's a lot of empathy, I'd say, from us and from NZ Wine for the growers that are growing and have got the yield caps, and they know that they can grow more and it can be good quality. I think that's probably a wider question for the industry. How do we actually manage that supply-demand dynamic collectively so that it's more sensible? But that's my job, but it's just my view.
An opportunity for one last question. Yes.
Why can't the leaves be simply returned back to the vineyards? It's just logistics.
As it is, Seth, do you want to have a stab at that? Well, I mean, it's not going to be very good for the vines if you actually put it back. It's got a very high concentration of PODs. I think I need your help, Seth. Sorry. Can you? Yeah.
Yeah, please.
POD. For the solids, it's very high, and salts, potassium and calcium. Yeah, so it's like
Yeah, and I think that's what we want to do as well. We want to provide the validation that it's safe to do these things. So, yeah, some people are doing it.
Juliet, many thanks for the presentation today, spanning across the research that Bragato
does in conjunction with a set of partners. And we're very pleased to be at Lincoln University, one of those partners, and helping to host the Vineyard vine collection. I think you've demonstrated a really strong connection to industry that comes through this, and the overall approach to giving that balance between that more blue sky type research plus applied research to address some of those key issues was really clear and apparent in the presentation today. So I compliment Bragato on that approach that they're actually taking. Many thanks for the presentation today. We've got 2 gifts here. Generally, we give you wine, but it's not. It's not. I did pretend that it could come out of our student collections, but we've got olive oil today. So thank you very much.
Did you get one?
Thank you. Please join us in the reception area for some drink.